Okay, let's start off with body of knowledge 1, which is project management. Okay, project management, the few key things to take note is this. Before we start a project, first we need to define the scope. Okay, scope means what is the exactly what we're trying to achieve. Okay, like example, in some organization, the objective is actually to develop BCP and also to be certified. Okay, so there's actually a scope that we have to make sure that we achieve our scope. Then, same thing as part of project management, we start off with definition. All definition must be standardized, and the most difficult definition, surprisingly, comes from disaster. The word disaster itself, and what's the incident, what's the emergency. So these are definitions that's very confusing organization till today, because a lot of people think that an emergency is a disaster or incident is a disaster. Actually, they're not. Both can become a crisis, both can become a disaster, right? So this will be a definition. Then we go into the organization structure. In BCM, the key thing to take note is this. The organization structure starts off with your day-to-day structure first. So the CEO or president or the MD, and then it comes down. Now what we do in BCM is actually to make sure that there's a direct mapping. Okay, direct mapping means who is the head of department and who is going to be appointed business continuity, the business unit BCM coordinator. So within this whole organization, I've just introduced you to a few concepts. One is executive management. Executive management, in some organization, there's many tiers. So it goes to board, it goes to management, senior management team. In small organization, basically it's the management team. So executive management is the highest level of management within the organization. Then we go down to who is actually the project sponsor. Okay, project sponsor is critical because if he or she is not senior enough, there's no chance of you surviving. Okay, because the project sponsor normally is a member of the senior management team. Then we talk about the next one will be who is the BCM organization BCM coordinator. In your context, it's normally called BCP manager. Example, this is probably the most, if you're doing a 5,000 course, this is probably most critical. Why? Because you are being trained to be an organization BCM coordinator, of which all the roles and responsibility for the BOK is important to you. Alright, so again, as part of the training, we're training you to be a BCP manager, of which you must know your roles and responsibility for the rest of BOK. Once we move on to that, then we talk about who is going to be the business unit BCM coordinator. Here is where we appoint the relevant people to be involved. Alright, so this will be more on the concept-wise. I must reiterate key concepts like BCM as an umbrella. Then we talk about BCP, DRP, we talk about RTO, RPO, and we talk about crisis, disaster, event, incident. All these are very, very, very important concepts. All right, so we move on to what's the purpose of BCM. I think protection of life is number one. This is something you probably know already. And then, of course, then protection against, or rather minimizing the loss there, because there's no such thing as no loss. So that is basically the objective of BCM. And then next, you move on to policies. Okay, once you set up the program, you have the steering committee. What's the roles and responsibility? The organization BCM coordinator. What's the responsibility? All these responsibilities are critical because they must know that you must be able to articulate this back when you go back to organization. Okay, so how to set up a policy and framework. Again, these are things that you must set up on day one. Okay, so a lot of organizations do not set up policy framework, and then whatever finish, when they're done, then they start to write the policy a bit too late. Okay, because the sign-off has to be signed immediately so that you have the mandate to kick off this project itself. Then, of course, we talk about budget. I think in terms of budget, this is the part that you have to actually ensure that you get sufficient budget before you start the project itself. Okay, so from the whole project initiation, bottom line is this. The most important thing is, first, the definition. Number two, your roles and responsibility for every single person within the company, within the BCM organization itself. And then of course, what is the policy framework, and then that's it. That is basically the requirement. So for now, you've seen in CPG what we've set up is actually the project charter, or now we call it policy and framework. This document actually states all the requirement from the start. All right. So with this document, management sign off, you can now proceed on with the implementation. Okay. So that's more for project management. Any question?